I hit that high note for y'all. So because we are a marketplace and because we like to travel the world, as y'all may or may not know, I'm a citizen of the world. My life goal is to see the whole world. However, work don't stop, business don't stop. And being that that's the case, I, as the boss, ran from Kenyan elections and I came back home to my mama's house right here in the MIA 305 Dade County. And I said to myself, I said, self, let's talk to the people. Y'all know I like to talk to the people, and so you guys have asked me for some story time and all of that, so I just wanted to give you all that. So today, I got my good girlfriend over here, to the left, Chantá Parker, Miss Parker if you're nasty. Now, some of y'all might not recognize that reference, but we're seasoned ladies, okay? So today I wanted y'all to speak to Shante, Madam Parker, because you guys all know how I believe that the future is female and that it is really important to have examples of what women can really do and what are capable of, right? Especially when we don't ask for permission to do stuff, right? In our cultures and our things, we've been told we always got to ask somebody, and I'm here to let y'all know you don't have to ask nobody because we only have one life in this life, right? So let's get into it. Madam Parker, introduce yourself to the people and let them know who you are, what you do, and then let's get into it.
Hi, y'all. My name is Chantá Parker. I like to tell people to say my name like RuPaul said it in the 90s. Sashay. Shante.
Oh.
You better work.
Come girl.
Work it, girl.
Do your thing. Okay, got it.
If you don't know that song, Google it. Or TikTok it, rather. That's how y'all learn.
And that's what the kids do nowadays.
Yes,
Look, that's what they do.
Chantá Parker, go by she, her pronouns, cisgender, able-bodied, black woman, Black American. I'm from Savannah, Georgia. My people are from South Carolina, Gullah Geechee people. So that's me. And I have had a long, winding road career, most primarily as a public defender, as an advocate for the liberation of black folks, literally, fighting to get people out of jail, prison, captivity, for much of my career, and now I'm doing some coaching of other leaders.
So let's kind of get into it because she just glossed over all of her fantasticness. And again, like I said, we've got two
you gotta
sets.
get an elevator pitch.
No,
You
I get
it
it.
all in the first
You can't give it to them all, but you know what?
seconds.
Look, we got the time. We got the time today. So what I really wanted to break down, because we have two sets of audiences, right? We have got a Western audience, and then we've got our local African audience, right? And generally, and y'all can let me know in the comments if I'm wrong or right, but I generally think I'm okay with this one. In Kenya, for instance, our cultures are much more, go to school, finish your degree, but find your husband right there, and then just do your job and save, make your investments, and that's it. And that's also the same in the South and where we are, America as well. However, what we are noticing, right, and this is the numbers across the board, regardless if you're in the West or in Africa, the number of women who are being educated, the numbers of women who are coming out are more than men. Women are scoring higher on scholastic tests. Even in Kenya, we saw with the KCSC, don't quote me if I messed it up, but y'all know what I'm talking about. It was more girls who were doing better than most of the men. And so let's just kind of go back, right? So you're from South Carolina, and South Carolina, guys, for you
From
guys
Georgia.
who are Georgia,
Yeah.
pull it, Georgia.
That's okay. Right across the river.
Right down the river. So being in the South, it's like also, right, for us Kenyans, this is more in the South part of the States. It's a little more conservative than being in like the Northeast, right? So family is very important, making sure you're having your babies and building your family and being involved in your family. That's what's really big. However, lives are big and we want bigger things, right? So tell us now, you started out in South Carolina. She's the middle of 3 kids, right? She has 3 daughters. So tell us kind of a little bit of what it was like growing up down in the South where you were at, and then what made you want to go to law school. She went to one of the best law schools in the country, and talk about like, how was it to get in, right? Because when we're talking about black lawyers collectively, it was probably like 10% of us. And then of that who are black women lawyers, there's like, you saw like, here we are, right here. So talk to the people, tell them, how did you get to that point? What was that work like? And kind of what were some of the challenges and the obstacles that you dealt with to be able to get into New York Law School, NYU Law School, and let's talk to that, and then after that, we'll proceed into your career, because it's like 2 sets, right?
Yeah, it's a
two
long
sets.
journey. And,
Yeah.
you know, when you think about all the things that go into it, growing up in Savannah, Georgia.
Sorry, Georgia.
No, but my mom's family, my grandmother's from South Carolina, so that may be what you get from me.
I feel you.
You know, so but
Even though she looks mad African to me, right? Don't she look just like a West African to y'all? Like even when I first met her, I was like, sister, where have you been? And she was like, no, girl, I'm.
And what's interesting is that my sister has done some work to kind of trace back my mother's side, and what we found is that we have Yoruba blood in us, you know. So
West Africa, Nigeria.
And the Gullah people are thought to be, or are descendants of the West Africans who were enslaved and brought over, and retained a lot of that culture and formed their own unique, innovative culture because they were isolated in some ways in the islands.
Sure.
Outside Carolina. But anyway, I'm gonna link it all back.
No, do it for him.
Because growing up, I grew up in a community and a family full of strong women who really sort of looked at me and said, "You are beautiful. You are smart. You are talented.
Yep.
Go, baby. Do anything you want to do.
Yep.
You can do it.
Yep.
Right? There was a lot of discipline
Yep.
around how I was gonna get there.
Yep.
But I got those building blocks by being encouraged to do well in school.
Yep.
Them being aware of how I was doing in school and advocating for me to be in gifted and talented classes and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So when we talk about like standardized tests, whatever the metrics were for the dominant culture for you to succeed as a young black girl, I was able to navigate that.
And when she's saying dominant, she means white.
No, white culture,
means
right?
white.
That's all those standardized tests are. I'm sure in Kenya as well. It's
set on a British
rubric
system in Kenya
to
as well.
see
Yeah.
how you are matching up to the dominant white culture. And so we see girls do that in some ways better because they're able to sort of figure it out in different ways than boys.
Yep.
But so anyway, propelled through that. Knew my aunt's a lawyer. She's an awesome, badass advocate, and so I wanted to be like her, more so because she lived outside of Savannah, and I knew that there was more for me to explore than Savannah. It's beautiful, it's lovely, but I need to see the world. Not on the level of Rita, but that was my goal, and so school was the vehicle to do that.
So you would say, and I think it would be fair to say, right, for young black girls who are living like where you were, for you, it might have been a clearer path shown because you actually had an example of what it was to see a professional lawyer. Like, I know your mom is a nurse, but you didn't choose to be in medical. You saw being a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
And being able to see, okay, look, here's a lady who's in my family, who is a black woman, who is from where I am, but look at how she's been able to, and you realize that she was able to get out of where you were from being disciplined, focused, and having an education vehicle to make that happen. Would you think that that's a fair thing to say?
That's right?
Okay.
And I think that the other vehicle sometimes to that, which I really love, was books. I would go be in my room with my older sister, younger sister out, riding bikes in the neighborhood. I did some of that, but I like to be inside with my books and read, because that was the window into the world for me to read about. I was interested in black people doing things in any context, so I was reading about that.
Okay.
So that was my way, and I think you're right. All of those things are really helpful to have that discipline, and also creativity.
Sure.
Like the freedom to dream of the world that
and
you
dream
wanna
big,
see,
right?
And dream big,
and just think about like the expanse, and it's like just keep saying it because eventually you're gonna see somebody where it's like, see, I told you I could do that. Okay.
So and I graduated high school. I had written in my little senior book, like I wanted to live, DC, New York, California, anywhere but Savannah. And so that was just the writing it down on paper. Went off to school for college in Atlanta. Shout out to Spelman. Woo-woo.
HSBC. Oh yeah, sorry. You know what I'm saying. Well, anyways, continue.
English is your first language. I got it. So, that experience is beautiful, just to be engulfed and wrapped up in black life of all different varieties and shades. The diversity of blackness was really...
What did that do for you to be able to be in a space where... So she went to college at Spelman College, which is an all-women's college, a black women's college, right? So for you in terms of your growth moving into this different spaces, right? So now you're going from Savannah, Georgia. Now you're going to Smelburne, which is in Atlanta, which is the biggest city in Georgia, right? So now it's almost like, let's say, comparatively going from village to the city, right? So now being with these women who are also similar to you, seeing similar faces to you. What does that do for you?
Just as well, right?
Yeah. What are they doing for you?
I had a decision point to make, and college for me, I was a lot in my head because I'm processing. Come from Savannah, being like top of the top of my school or whatever, my community, to come. It's like it's 100 of you from every county in Alabama, Georgia, Seattle, homegirls from from the islands, and it was like, wow. How do I then see myself? And so I eventually, I think very early on, was like, this is dope. Like, I want to be able to be amongst the best of the best, and that's what that was. And all of us just exist, and I'd be able to support and boost up my sisters, or at least not get in the way, put a block in the way of another Black woman. Because
what does that mean to you? What's that mean? Because like we always talk about that, right? We talk about that.
You don't always vibe with every other Black woman that you come across, and that's okay. You don't vibe with every other human that you come across. That's fine. But I always recognized that as a Black woman somewhere, she had similar struggles put in her place by everybody else. So what I could do is be neutral. I didn't need to, if I observed at Burger King, my first job, I observed the other Black woman on the team, like, I don't know, giving her friend extra fries. I'm going to be neutral. If I didn't, we weren't cool, I'm not going to tell the boss that she's doing that. I'm just going to let her do her thing. Because as a Black woman, she may need this job, and her friends may need those fries or whatever. Like, the world has already put enough crap in her face. I'm not going to add to that.
Facts, I feel that.
And so that has kind of been my approach to it, and I got a lot of that from Spelman, because I could just see that we are all just so beautiful and brilliant in our own way, and we also come with all of our experience, and we're working through those at our own pace, and that's the most loving thing I could do, is to be neutral.
And you felt like you were able to really learn that now being in a space which is predominantly Black women, but now you're from all over the world. So now your circle and your exposure is getting bigger, right? And for me, and I've always said this to anybody, right? To be educated is privileged. But if you don't have education, or if you don't have sports to get you out to be educated, then the next best thing to do is to travel, right? And that exposure, it's amazing all the stuff that you'll learn, right? Like, definitely, I mean, I've been trying to go everywhere, and you realize the more and more you go out, the more and more you're interacting with different people, actually the more same we are, right? All right, so now you at Spelman. Graduated. What did you study at Spelman? Because the other thing I want people to really understand is, right, we're both lawyers, but now at present, neither one of us work in our fields, right? And one of the things is that sometimes we are taught, go get educated, get your degree, and then now you're just in that line for the rest of your life because that's what you've chosen, not understanding, as with all things, everything changes, right? How your mindset was when you was 20 to 30 to 40, all that changes, right? And being able to have the graciousness to ourselves to allow for us to move how we want to move, right? And being like, girl, it's good. You could do whatever you want, right? So now tell me, now you're at Spelman. Now, next, what's up?
So Spelman, I was like, I'm going to law school, and so let me do something in college that's going to be fun and interesting and just add to my repertoire. I'm always like,
so you knew you were going to go to law school the minute you went to undergrad. You knew.
Yeah, my high school was a legal magnet, right? I chose my high school to kind of because I thought my aunt was a lawyer, so I said that's the way to make enough money to get to live to where I want to be. So I just like, and then over the journey, once I decided on that field, I was like, okay, narrowing in on that. So, but college was history. I focused on African American history as my major because, again, I'm like all things Black. I really wanted to understand the history of this country in deeper ways.
And to understand the history of this country, we also have to do a part of the African continent, right?
Yeah,
you see how we're all tied?
It's built on Black labor, and indigenous labor. So that was my major. And then my last year of college, I was doing a museum fellowship where I was actually learning how to be a curator in a museum. Yeah, I know, right? Crazy.
Now, let me tell you, I've been knowing her for a long time. That's the first time I've heard this.
I did this whole program. That's how I met my friend whose partner is from Kenya. So I met her in this program. Yeah,
over there. That's where you met. Oh, okay.
So it's our senior year, and we were immersed in this
great.
museum, and we learned about curation, about museums. And so at the end of college, I applied to all these schools, some in Georgia, some in New York, and I was like, I need to go to New York. I didn't get in right away. So I started looking for jobs in curation. Like I applied to an auction house in New York. I was just like, I have to be in New York. So if I need to take a year off,
that's what we'll do.
That's what we'll do.
Yep.
And my grandma was like, don't, you better go to school. No. I was like, well, Grandma, I hear you, and some in the universe better make a way at these New York schools because
and the competition is different. York, right? The competition is different, right? Like that's what we're saying. They levels to this stuff, okay? Whatever you might think that you know, look, there's a whole nother level that if you don't take that bold step to be in it, you are never gonna know, right? Yeah. Continue.
So, and this a principle I learned later in life, which is following your highest excitement.
Tell me about that. I like that. Highest excitement. Y'all heard that? Tell me about that. Tell me about it. I like it.
I learned this later, like back when I was living in New York. But whatever makes you the most excited in any moment, do that. And then that's going to lead to more excitement. Right? Okay. And so, and that could be just us sitting here together. What's the next thing that we could do that's most exciting to us? Do that, and then everything else will fall into place. Okay. And so that's really what I was doing at that point.
So what was it?
Point.
What was
my highest excitement was to be in New York.
Okay.
And so I was like, either I'm going to go get one of these law schools to let me in, or I'm going to get a curating job. But my highest excitement was to
be in New York City
law school.
The Big Apple.
The Big Apple. I spent my junior year there, and I was like, I got to get back. So luckily the law school came up, and so I was like, okay, then law must be what I need to do next. Okay. And so went to NYU, and I love New York. It's like it made me a woman. I had so much fun.
Summertime in NYC, girl.
Just love to walk, and so it was a really good place to be for law school. Law school's hard. Again, because it's trying to mold you into
a new way of thinking.
That is white.
It's a new language.
Dominant culture, white supremacists, all those things. They just like, you must learn this way because this is the way that the system is set up. And it's hard because as a black person, as a black woman growing up in the South, where my family has taught me that actually black is beautiful and worthy. And
then you go up here and they tell you it's like your shit.
Yeah, and
black one.
I'm smart. I know I'm smart. Yeah, I did my African American history. So once you get to the law school, and you're like, this is all a sham. Like this is all. Y'all have created this system, and it works for you, and I've got to learn it to then navigate it.
To make it work for me. But just so
you know, it's not inherently better just because you made it. And so we're starting to see that with the crumbling of like the Supreme Court and all that. So that was, for me, was law school. And so it's like you gotta make these grades to get out and do the things. But it was great to live in New York while going through all of that. So
sure. So before we move on after this law school, let's kind of talk, because one of the things that I've definitely noticed in Kenya, which I think is a disadvantage to the youth, where here we are ingrained in it. I have noticed that a majority of Kenyans who go in that professional route, the first time they actually ever have a real job is now after they have fully qualified for their positions. So a lot of these guys, i.e. like lawyers who are coming out, the first time they have real jobs is at like 25.
Yeah, that's real.
And for us here, like I know I started working about 13, 14. Yeah. It was for free, but I was outside, right? Does working in these different areas, as you are moving towards what you want to be ultimately a lawyer in New York City, does that help to shape you in any way? And if so, how?
Yeah, it definitely shaped me because it's just like every work environment has its own culture, has its own language, has its own way of people relating to each other. And you just got to kind of think about it as a system that you got to learn to get what you need to get to go home to your family.
So what's that mean? Tell me that. What does that mean?
Quote. It's like, I love it so much. You aren't the work that you do. You are the person you are. You aren't the work that you do. Something like that. I'm messing it up. But basically, like, you go and you give them your skill or whatever, you get paid for, and you go home. Don't kind of wrap yourself up into it as like your identity. And that could be hard. In different contexts, you could feel more like that. Like when I worked at Burger King in high school, I was like, I know I'm not Burger King. I'm not a Burger King worker. But then once you put in years in law school and you
yeah, it's like I'm a lawyer.
I'm a lawyer defender.
That's
and
what
that's
I
my
do.
identity.
That's how I am.
It's so you really have to constantly. I love to sweat. So
it's hot. Excuse the wetness,
and
y'all.
Winter is coming. Yes, I'm soaking it in. So you just have to constantly, and at a certain point on my journey, I've been better at that and not so good at that. But remembering that you are the person you are. You don't have the work that you do. I think that's.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, Toni Morrison dropped.
I like that because I know for a while I'd rarely tell people I'm a lawyer. I rarely. When I moved to Kenya, I never said it, but in Kenya, people love lawyers so much. So I was like, hey y'all, I'm an advocate. Yeah, but generally I'm like, that's just one of the things I do, but this is not me at all. No,
interesting thing about you.
No, not at all.
Yeah, remembering that has been, I think, a key life lesson for me throughout my
I
journey.
like that. And then now, just also as an aside, now because you have worked in these different things, and as you're saying, you have the cultures to get used to in these different environments. What does you being in these different environments, what skills do you feel that you have learned, which then also ultimately helps you as you become a lawyer navigating in that arena? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right.
I think one big skill was how to let go of my ego.
Okay, what's that mean?
And to, like when you're working with clients, when you sit down across from them, you want to have them respect you.
Sure.
But you also want to make sure you meet their goals,
Sure.
right? And so if you are doing too much of them, trying to make them see you as a expert, then you're going to waste a lot of time talking the whole 30 minutes y'all supposed to be meeting. You're supposed to be getting information, and you come out of it with nothing. Whereas if you come and say, I'm here to do my job. I don't need to tell you about it. I'm going to show you. So let me tell me everything I need to know. I'm going to go out and do it and come back. And then you'll see I'm an expert. I don't have to convince you beforehand. That's where you kind of
see how I work.
See how
just
I
watch
work.
how I do.
Yeah.
You ain't got to hear me say it. You gonna see it.
And that's always been kind of my way, that skill of do your work, show your work.
I believe
because,
that.
People see you and they have a certain, like, oh, you're this,
mark your
that.
work with excellence.
And
excellence.
And so like, you're going to sell me short. I feel like I'm always like a little sleeper cell, and you might look me up and down
But that's how they do black women anyways, right? That's how they do us, not even just blacks, as Africans, right?
Yeah.
That's how they always view us, that we ain't shit, that we don't have nothing to be able to provide. But keep it in mind, we've got everything, right? I have a whole theory on that. One of these days I'm gonna give you all my theory, but I have a real theory for why all of the world comes to the browns and the blacks to take what we want. I've got another theory. I'm gonna tell you all that on another day.
That's probably a deep theory. And
I love my theories.
It doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't matter why they think that. It's like, what are you doing and how are you moving through the world? And what do you think of yourself? And that's gonna take you a lot farther.
Hold on, look, helicopters. You got the choppers in the air. Pass it, pass. Or maybe he heard us interviewing and he was like, I want to know what you guys are talking about. All right, continue.
Yeah, no, I think I was finishing that thought.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we are in law school, and for us in the States, for you guys here in Kenya, for us in the States, we go to undergrad, so like campus for 4 years. After that, you have to take an entry exam to get into law school. Then you go to law school for another 3 years.
Yeah.
After you've graduated for the 3 years, after that, you then, depending on what state you want to practice your things in, you then have to do another exam, which is 2 days, 8 hours long. California is 3 days, 8 hours long. And then after you pass the exam, you have to go to that state, and then they got to interview you to make sure you are fit enough to be where they're at, okay? Which is unlike all you guys in Kenya. And then after you do all of that, you have requirements every year, every 2 to 3 years, depending on what state you're in, to do educational classes while you're working full time.
And pay some bread.
And you got to pay, girl, thank you. And you got to run them checks, okay? So this year I just spent, got my $80,000. $800 for all of my bar licenses. I'm barred in 2 states. She barred in like what, 4? 4 y'all, all right? And the majority of the folks are barred in 1, okay? So again, what y'all is seeing here is the excellence. All right, now back to you.
Yeah.
So now we are at, we're graduating school.
Yeah.
Now we have gone through the rigors of law school. We've dealt with that.
This is a good point
Now
to
tell me.
share with your viewers,
Tell me.
because to think about, like, this idea of doing what you want to do, but also giving yourself grace to say, make a mistake, or not a mistake, but like take a little bit of a long way to get back to where you need. Because after I graduated law school, I had done public defender clinics, so helping people with free legal services when they have a criminal case in law school, and kind of knew that's kind of what I wanted to do.
Oh, as an aside, just so they know, while you are in law school in the States, you are expected to do free work. No, it's to learn. But what I'm saying is that there are certain differences with how we do schooling, right? Yeah. So when I deal with a lot of the advocates that I deal with in Kenya, sometimes you're doing comparison of like, well, what was your schooling? What was the rigors? What was expected of you? And there's a difference, right? It took me a long time to find my advocate. I love her, all right? But I interviewed her because I was like, I know what we're expected to do. And if I'm now going to a colleague in another country who's doing what we're doing, I got to know that what you're saying is what's up, right? Because I'm not barred in Kenya, but I know law. So I needed to make sure, and I went through a lot of lawyers. Oh my God, I went.
That's good. You should vet.
Anyway,
the right
no, you have to, but you don't realize that, right? Because you're going to school, you're thinking it's one way, and then now you go to another country, and you're like, oh, y'all probably had to do the same thing, and now all of a sudden you're talking to people, and it's like, oh, we're not alike. Oh God, no, you guys didn't do what we had to do. You know what I mean? And for me, it was very important because I wanted somebody who knew what she was saying and what she was doing, right? Because, right? Like now you're doing a business. I don't want to do no legal stuff, right? I like being a lawyer client. I love it. You know what I mean? Because I know what you're supposed to be doing, but I don't have to watch you do what you're doing, right? So anyways, continue.
Continue. So But I decided instead of going after law school to do that, I went back to Savannah. And just felt that maybe I should go to Savannah and be a big fish in a smaller pond and give back to my immediate community in this particular way. But once, I think it was like 2 or 3 months I was there. And
couldn't do it?
And I literally was like, this is not...
This
the
don't
life
serve
I
me.
See for myself.
This don't serve me. This don't serve me.
I want to be in a bigger place.
It's hot, y'all.
I love, coming from New York back to Savannah, it's just like, no, this is not quite right. And that's a hard thing to do because I thought I was following my excitement to go to Savannah. And ultimately it turned out not to be, and my whole family is there. And, it's like family once you close. I want to be close.
Nope, I get that.
But I had to be like, no, this wasn't the right decision. And even though it was quick, like 8 months in, family, I was courageous enough to say, I got to go back to New York because that's where my highest excitement is. And sometimes when you follow and people can look at you like,
you flip-flopping.
Do you know
what you doing?
And it could seem like that's a long course, but it might be the most direct route to get you where you need to be. And I'm willing to bumble and try and experiment.
But I also think on the flip side, and I feel like maybe you're not even giving yourself no credit.
Tell me.
Is for me, I feel like we are always in the quest to understand ourselves the best, right? And if one is really able to understand what is best for them, what are those things that they need in their lives to be able to be their best versions, then in fact, the fact that you did go back and you realize, no, this is not how it goes, and I do need to keep it moving, regardless of what the family says to you, regardless of however, I think that's actually bold AF. Because now what happens is, right, you're getting into that, like, we got to know ourselves. And if you don't know yourself, nobody else can tell you how you need to know yourself, right? And the thing is that, again, it goes back to what we said at the beginning of this. We don't allow ourselves. We're always asking other people for permission to live how we trying to live, and y'all don't live my life.
And you don't, they won't really know it. And
you
nobody,
don't want to know.
Even I, in parts of it, didn't quite understand the whole journey.
But
now looking back, I'm like, oh, that's why,
you had to.
I now have this skill to be able to move from one place to the next.
And that's a skill.
Build community where I
am. A skill.
And so get the skills along the way that I needed to do what
it's
I
a
do
skill.
now.
It's a skill, and you don't realize it at the time while you're going through it, right? But you realize it as you get older, and in hindsight, it's like, thank God I learned this. Oh, thank God I learned this, right?
That little bit of employment law I did right after law school came in handy when I was running an office.
Sure. Oh, okay. You saw how she dropped that, running an office. Let's talk about that. So now, let's do a little fast forward. Okay, so now we kind of did, all right, so now you've graduated, you go back to Savannah. Savannah's like, whatever, this is not going to cut it. I got to go back into the NYC. Now you go back to NYC, and now you are working in a firm.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how you went from firm. So firm money in the States, it's just the yuck. It's paisa. Kabisa paisa, guys, okay? And then you go back to being a public defender. Like, I ain't never been a firm lawyer. I've always been a broke public defender, okay? And then you go down and your check gets cut to like a third.
Yeah.
Okay? A fourth.
Yeah.
Okay?
But
now, I've never been a firm lawyer, so I don't even know what that height difference is.
Yeah.
But she does. So let's just kind of talk to the people about, like,
Yeah.
what was that like? You go from
Yeah.
firm to now you're moving. Let's talk about that
Yeah.
before we get to the office.
Yeah, well, I think I'll start with the office ending because really, again, decision points for me. And so the decision point when I was back in New York and I was working at this firm, and I was like, okay, this is not the life that I want to live. Longer term, this is good for now. I got to go to Grammys.
So just as a little bit, tell the people what firm life really means.
Yeah,
just give it a little
just like
breakdown.
You really spend 80 plus hours a week just working. You're kind of on call for whenever the partners, the heads of the office need research done, need things written. And because they pay you so much, it's like you should have to be available to me to do this work.
Sure.
I'll give you perks, you know,
Sure.
the pay's good, you
Sure.
know, I'll pay for your rides home and stuff like that. But it was just like, you're all in to this job. And so
80 hours a week, y'all.
it's a lot of work.
That's a
It's
lot.
a lot of work.
That's 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah, and a lot of people do those kinds of jobs with that much work put in with not even that much money, right? So you get it. And so I was just like, this is not for me. Some people thrive in it. I'm not going to thrive here. And so I had to get like, okay, what's the most exciting thing next you could do? And that's when I sort of came back to public defense.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, but take a long-term view now. Okay, we've learned from jumping around. You want to go do that. What would that look like in 5-10 years for you?
Sure.
And so it was like, I want to run an office. And so how do I get to that? So you got to go to the bottom, learn it all, and then work your way up.
So let's just talk about, just so that the people can understand what it says to run an office, right? So law firms, like the big ones, right? You have your big like names, right? Like the only one right now I can think of in Kenya was like that Stratton or something, right? Where it's like a big firm and everybody's so prestigious, so we learn. So in public defense, this is now where you're representing poor people for free, and the government is paying you, right? Yeah. So your clients are not running you a check, but the government is running you a check. And if you ever watch like American TV, where it's like, okay, a lawyer is going to be appointed for you, but if you can't afford it, that's what we were doing. And now when you're doing this type of work, you have offices in your respective areas, right? So you'll have one big main office that works for the community in that area. So for me, originally I worked in the Miami-Dade Public Defender's Office. So for us, all of our clients were those people who were in Dade County, not the other county. So i.e., if you're in Nairobi, if we were in the Nairobi Public Defender's Office, we would just do Nairobi, but we wouldn't take people from Meru. We wouldn't take people from like Nanyuki. We wouldn't take people from Eldoret, right? Yeah. Each city would have its own office for how you're doing, right? Now, depending on how that looks, right, there are certain offices that are stellar, right? Like, not to toot our own horn, but here in the U.S., the 2 biggest ones are Miami-Dade and Washington, D.C. Where we was working in New York, you know, all right, whatever. That's another aside.
That's
that's my
like
thing.
with any industry, any context, it's like you want to create your own version of it, and as that's like the pinnacle of what my career could be in this industry.
Right.
So
that's the top of the top. So when I met Shante, I stalked her. All right, like we used to see each other in court in New York, right, in Manhattan. So she worked for the Neighborhood Defender Service. I worked for the Legal Aid Society. So in the county of Manhattan, there were different providers who did the same services. And because the courthouses, depending on which borough you were in, that's where you guys all met. Now, earlier, as I just told you, there ain't no black folk doing this stuff, right? So now I'm going to work. So I moved from Miami to New York City to work. So I've already been doing this for a number of years. Shante had already been doing this for a number of years down in New Orleans. So now we went to New York City. So you're going to court. You're sitting here, but every day I'll be seeing her. It's like, who is this?
Hey, girl.
Hi. But we work for different offices, right? So we don't talk to their people. They don't talk to our people.
We clearly talk.
But because, you know, as we said, the skill to learn how to build community and to be able to talk. So one day, I just rolled up on her, y'all. I was like, hey, you over there. Why don't you call your friends? I'm going to call my friends. And let's just do a happy hour together so we can all meet one another. So she kind of looked me up and down and was like, okay. And I was like, okay. And we met over there by the Empire State Building over on 33rd. Remember so that nice. little cute little spot, rooftop. And I think we collectively got like 30 people together, right? Numbers. We had like a good set of numbers. And what was really nice is that we had different levels. Yeah. But again, these are skills that you learn. You don't think about it. But these are skills that you learn, right? And so then we were all there. And it was really nice because after that one happy hour that we did, after that, all of the people that I brought to the happy hour, all the people she brought to the happy hour, now when we saw each other in court every day, it was like, hey, what's up? It felt more community-like. It felt more support-like, right? Because again, going back to what we were talking about, as Black people, we don't get the support that we need. We don't get the support that people think we need. And if you don't actively do it for yourself, ain't nobody gonna do it for you, right? And that's with anything in life, right? So that's really how we met. Right, and so that's how we met. I ran up on her. I said, "Come on, I need some friends." I said, "Look," and it took, and we had to feel each other out. Like we just talked about that actually yesterday, where it was like, I don't know if this is gonna work long term, and it's like, do you do this? Do you do this? Right? Because you got to be able to chill together too, right? So, anyways, needless to say, this has been many years later. Here we are. It worked, and I'm just saying that to y'all because one day I had read this thing. This one girl on Facebook, she was like, "How do you make friends as adults?" And you don't think about it, but it's hard. To make something that's quality. That's quality.
Like relax.
Right.
And I going through this a little bit. I just moved to Detroit.
Yeah.
Not 3 years now. But
okay, so wait, let's talk about that so that you can tell me in that context. Okay, so now when we first met, like I said, she was always talking about how she wants to run her own office. She wants to run her own office. She wants to run her own office in a whole city where she the boss. The boss of bosses. You understand? Kiss the ring. Kiss it. You understand? And I remember she used to always say that, and I was just like, well, then, okay, great. Like, I'm here for it, whatever. And then what's so fantastic is when you are listening to people, and we had talked about this in another video, the importance of being able to write down your goals, being able to really be very clear and articulate about all the things that you want. Whether they're big or small, that's not the point. The point is to be able to really articulate them and be very clear about it. And then when you go back and you see, it's like, I did it. I did that. I did it. You get what I'm saying? And so now, that's what she had been talking about for a long time. So now tell me about how they handed her the keys to the kingdom. They said, hey, yo, you, Madam Parker. Madam Parker, you've been talking about it. Be about it.
Here it is.
Here's the keys. Now what you gonna do? Tell the people how you all did that. How'd you do that?
It wasn't a straight path.
No.
I had to break it down into its little parts. And so, like, what are the things that I need to be good at this? First is, like, be a good litigator. I had to know how to do the work. So that's why I went and took the pay cut and went to New Orleans to learn how to do the job. And then along the way, I was, like, looking for opportunities, checking my progress each year or whatever towards those goals. And saying, okay, now I need to learn this skill. I need to learn how to be a better communicator. More opportunities to work with number ones and number twos in the industry. So I take this job. I need to learn how to manage and be a supervisor. So let me take this job. I pitched another job to somebody, and said, hey, can I be your such and such? And they were like, no, but that person knew that I was a quality worker. And so when there was opportunity for me, I needed a job, and I went to them and was like, what you got? They was like, here you go. And so came on the team, and as I was working that role, which I knew how to do, they were like, hey, there's an opportunity. I'm going to open an office in Detroit. Do you want to go out and run it? And I was like, Detroit? What? I've been there once before, but it was the opportunity. It was the head of an office.
That's what you wanted.
And so I went out to Detroit and spent a weekend with my cousin. I was like, can I live here? And did all the things that I like to do. And it checked the boxes. Nice. Detroit was not a place I had ever thought about.
It's cold, guys. What?
It's cold in the D, as they say, right?
It is cold,
but being open to, like, this is the opportunity you've been wanting.
That's what you wanted.
It may not be in the place you thought it was going to be, right? I thought maybe I would go back to this city and get that job. But actually was offered that job recently and said no to it. So long, but like, so I took the opportunity that was in front of me, and went out there and built this office and just. It was amazing.
I was so proud of her, y'all, because that's like so what's up, it not only does it not happen often, but the fact that it's for a Black person and in particular city. A woman, it's a lot of things, y'all. And what's nuts is, like, keep in mind, y'all, like, like, if you're going to court and they're saying, like, whose office are you in? It's like, I'm in Parker's office. No, I'm serious, right? Because Parker gets to create the culture in the office.
Yeah.
Parker gets to dictate, how is this going to look? How are you guys going to represent what I'm saying out here? And you have to understand, for all of us who are public defenders, we work in other people's offices, right? Like, that's what's up.
That's true. And but
It is
also
true.
to go back to that lesson around separating the ego out.
Sure.
Like, was like, I'm building this. And yes, it could be Parker's office and all of that, but actually it's not.
Yeah.
I just wanted the opportunities to hold this position, to have that spirit influence. I did that.
Sure.
And then once I had done that, I came to a place that was like, do I really want to stay in this role, or is there somebody else who's from Detroit who actually is better positioned to do this role or can contribute more now that I've got it built?
Okay.
And had my ego been like, no, this is Parker's office, I'm not going nowhere, this is where I built, this is all my thing, I could have stayed.
Sure.
And not allow for others to have opportunities and for my own self to go on and do something different. And
So you started the office now for 3 years, and so now are you still a practicing attorney, Madam Parker?
I am, actually.
Okay, so tell us now what you mean. No, keep them in.
I
keep the licenses active, but now tell me in terms of your day-to-day.
Cases, one case actually now that I'm keeping. But the courtroom stuff is not my day-to-day. I'm an executive coach, so I now coach other number ones and number twos in organizations across the country to better manage their offices. I'm still learning it, but I think I'm excited to learn the skills. I love jobs that are going to teach me something.
You like the challenge.
Yeah.
You like the challenge, right?
I want to be a better human being, and so this job is definitely helping me with that, because I'm a problem solver, and so it's nice to support generally Black and brown leaders in their roles in the important work that they do. So
no, this is so what's up. So now, like, as we're kind of wrapping this up, right? Because I just really kind of wanted it to be a showcase of, like, to show you guys that, like, you really can do whatever you want to do. You really can. And if you dream big and you have the creativity, you have the focus, the drive, the resilience, the tenacity, you really can make it look any way you want to. And it's not just about money, y'all.
No.
It's not just about money, right? That comes.
Because money is only one form of abundance, right?
Yes.
And when you realize that, like, yes, money is good and it's necessary, but abundance comes in a lot of different ways. It comes in somebody giving you a gift, right?
Yep.
Rita invited me down to hang out with her in Miami is a gift, a form of abundance that I needed. I needed some rest and relaxation after the beginning of this month. So that's one way. Somebody giving you a gift, somebody doing something for you, somebody giving you an object, listening, giving you their time. So if you kind of think about your, like, collection of abundance and look at your life and see what you have available to you, that you're going to be using those different sources in different ways throughout your life.
So as we wrap it up, tell the people, and in particular, like, our Black ladies who are watching this, what are 2 lessons up to this point in your life that you have learned that maybe your younger self would have liked to have known that you want to tell the people?
I think for my younger self, I would just be a reminder, because I think to not seek validation from outside is super duper hard, because that's what we're kind of ingrained in us to do.
Sure.
But to have that own self validation for yourself, so not be looking to others to say yes, that idea is good or not good, and just follow your core, your intuition, your gut more. Trust yourself is definitely something I would tell myself. And then I would say, don't take so long to, like, be in, like, your little sad points or whatever. Like, when I look back, I'm like, dang, okay, that thing happened. I needed to have a little day or two of sadness, but you didn't have to have 6 months for that.
Right.
And you could have, if you could have got it done in a month, even, you could have got to the next point. So that's what I would say is, like, don't waste as much time wallowing, and it can be hard, but
it's hard.
That's what I would tell myself. My
Okay, I like it. Okay.
Take a day, a week, maybe a month if it's some heavy shit. And so this is what I say about relationships. Because I remember somebody told me that for every year you're in a relationship, it would take like 8 months to get over it, some shit like that. And I was like, oh, so you got to be super duper careful about who you're in a relationship with, and how long and get out when you see that first red flag or whatever. Because the longer you're in it, the longer it's going to take you to actually process it and get through it. You will process it, hopefully, because you're going to do your work. You always do your work. But do you want to waste such an amount of time? And so
time's the only thing you don't get back.
18 months, it ain't working how I want it to work.
Gonna have to
change.
change.
Love you and goodbye.
Good luck to you.
So,
y'all heard it over here today, y'all. Look, we out here.
Ladies, we are
MIA 305 day counter. We talking.
Beautiful.
We doing it.
Brilliant. I love black women.
Females. The future is female. You know, I've been saying it all the time. People get annoyed when I say it, but I've been saying it for years.
Yeah.
It's about us. If it wasn't for us, you know. But anyways, more on that later. Anyways, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us today on this TIA Marketplace. You see that downstairs? Like, subscribe. Hit me up in the comments if there's anything that y'all want to talk about, y'all want to hear about. But if not, I'm going to talk to y'all later. Peace be with y'all.
Bye.
Bye.